Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Brittany and this is Bob. Today I'm going to be talking about how to use a bob for your sword fighting training. So bob is actually a training tool that's available through Century Martial Arts, and I don't even think they know I exist, so this video is not sponsored in any way. This is just me sharing my love for bob. I often get asked about the durability of bob. I use bob with training weapons like steel longswords, synthetic axes, all sorts of things. And after more than a year of consistent training, about 20 hours a week, he actually holds up really, really well. Something to keep in mind, however, is bob is actually a very expensive training tool. And if you don't have the means, don't feel pressured to get a bob. You can get something like a Pell made out of wood and tires for under $30. So if you do have the means to afford a bob, it's a really, really great training tool. This one was actually donated to us by one of my former students, so fortunately I didn't have to pay for bob either. As you can see, bob gets pretty dirty, but for the most part, that's really the only concern. And if you really are concerned about that, or you want to try and protect bob from other damage, one of the things that you can do is outfit him in HEMA equipment. One of the things you can do to help bob last a little bit longer, put a fencing mask on him, and a jacket. I can say that he actually wears a size medium AF mask and an XL Spez jacket. Now of course you don't need the mask, but it will help provide bob with a longer life. But for the most part, as long as you take care of your training weapons, it will also not damage bob. With longswords, for example, if they have burrs or any little sharp bits on them, file those off before you use them on bob, otherwise this material that he's made of is prone to tearing or scratching. Bob needs to be filled in the base with either water, sand, I think some people even use gravel, and depending on how full you make that base will determine how much he moves when you train with him. I like to keep a little bit of water in the base so that I can move him around the studio pretty easily, but also because then he moves a lot when I hit him and it feels like dynamic flow. So as you can see, he'll bend over pretty easily, and he'll pop right back. But this sort of movement when I'm hitting him actually gives me a feel of having to be dynamic in my choices with my handwork, my footwork, so it gives me a lot of really great feedback that a heavy Pell might not. Bob's height is also adjustable, which is really, really helpful if you want to train for taller opponents or shorter opponents, or you yourself are maybe a little bit shorter and you want to actually try and use a Pell that's within your range. Bob is entirely customizable in his height. Bob's a really excellent training tool. I can use him for cuts, thrusts, and slices. One thing to keep in mind with your thrusts, however, it's a very small amount of surface area making contact on the face, for example. There are some weak spots. Something like the bridge of the nose or in the crease of the mouth. That's where there's some weakness there and it is prone to tearing. We did have one tear here a little bit at the bridge of the nose, but overall it doesn't really affect how well I can use the bob, and this is a pretty easy fix. Again, we've put a huge amount of time into training with bob, and when I say we, I mean myself, the other instructors at my HEMA school, all of my students. We all use bob, we all love bob, and over time he's bound to have some wear and tear, but he's held up great. Hitting the back of bob, not the best idea. It even says directly on him that this is not an intended area for striking. So of course that might not be good for your sword, and it definitely is not good for bob. You also have steel screws and washers here in the back. Hitting those with your sword might cause some damage to your sword, so maybe for the most part try not to hit bob in the back of the head or the spine, which might be really excellent for your training. Before you start training with a bob, do keep in mind that hitting bob with a steel sword or any other kind of weapon may very well void any warranty that the seller offers. This might constitute gross abuse or negligence of the product, so if you are going to spend several $100s on a bob, maybe think about the fact that you are likely voiding the warranty if there is one by hitting it with weapons. So let's get right into hitting him with some steel weapons. Bob is great for strikes. He can actually handle a lot of abuse. You can hit Bob pretty hard and he'll be fine. I can also use Bob as a target for thrusts. So as you can see, he's got a face and a chest, great for thrusts. And if you don't fill the bottom with water, he might tip over. Bob has managed to hold up against a ton of abuse over the last year and a little bit. However, I don't recommend using Bob with sharps, obviously, or pole arms is another example. Basically anything that you wouldn't want to hit a partner with in a fencing mask, maybe don't do to Bob. But for some drilling with your fetter, for example, or synthetics, works really, really well. So with that said, I hope that answered some of your questions about how I use my Bob to train. And as well, if you intend to get a Bob, let me know how that goes. Put it in the comments below. Otherwise, happy training and treat your Bob well.